Hello and welcome. We're going to look at a few things really quick here. We're going to be working in Excel. Okay, 7 steps here. We're going to go to Vail Docs and download the spreadsheet that you guys populated with the form. We're going to sort that data with the filter once we've downloaded it. We're going to find the average and the range and make an estimate on where we need to round. Once we do that, we're going to use a more specific way of doing it. It's called average deviation, and that will allow us to write an uncertainty statement. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at Vail Docs. We're going to download the spreadsheet. Well, the nice thing about our Vail Docs, vailstudents.org, it's basically Google Docs. So I've already gone over to Google Docs here, and I have a sample set of data. All right. What that tells us is we have a bunch of data that I can't edit. Well, I want to be able to edit it. So the first thing I can do is File, inside the Google Doc. Notice not the Safari file menu or the browser menu, but actually the file menu inside the program. You're going to hit Download as Excel. It'll open up a new page and send the download to the top right. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and double click on it, and it loads the data. Okay. So all we've done is gone to Vail Docs and just downloaded the data. And here it is in its full. Now we're going to get our data that we need. We only want our class. So let's say we're period 2. We're going to sort the data using autofilter. So we go over back to our Excel program. We find the first row of information, that's all of the headers, and you just select all of the headers until you have them all. Here I only have 3 columns, so I have 3 headers. Then I go to Data, Filter, Autofilter. And well, now we have this little arrow going up and down. If we click on that, it gives us some options. First things first, we're going to sort ascending. And now anything that was mixed up, like someone came in later and added data, well, it is now sorted in the correct place. The next thing is we're going to filter out all of the rest. So we want period 2, so I click period 2. And sure enough, all is left is periods 2 information. Alright, so that's called Data Filter Autofilter. Really cool tool. Now we're going to take that information and calculate an average. Well, typically that's something you can do in a calculator or by hand. But when you have a piece of data from every student or every other student, it gets a little tough to keep track of things. So the first thing we're going to do is learn how to enter a formula in Excel. We can type whatever we want into Excel's little cell inside the spreadsheet. Well, if we type a very specific key, the equal sign, it's going to think, oh, you're doing something special. That is a formula. Well, the formula for average is the word average. So you say equals average. And as you type, you may get a box that says, oh, here's some formulas for you. You can click on that, or you can just continue to type. When we're using formulas, we need to always provide arguments or things that we're going to tell it to do. We want the average of this stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is use a parentheses. Now you can see that it says, oh, you were doing an average, and we can list a bunch of numbers using commas. However, we just want a range of numbers. So notice I can move my mouse around and I have this gray box following it. Well, I'm going to click and drag all the way to the top of my data, except I don't need to include the very first row, just up to here, for example. Once I have that selected, I'm going to hit Return, and this gives me the average. Now, in the columns that you have nothing underneath there, you can go ahead and type what this is. This was an average. Okay. Notice that all of our data has 3 decimal places or less, and our average has a lot more decimal places than our numbers. More than likely, we can't claim all these decimal places. We've got to round somewhere, and Excel will not round for you. You need to tell it where to round. So this is just your work area. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is range. Well, the range requires two things. What is the minimum value? What's the maximum value? Well, there's a couple ways we can do that. We could sort our data again by arranging it from lowest to highest, but the problem with that is that we have a lot of columns of data and they're all going to be all over the place. So it's probably better if we do it with a program. So we're going to type in the maximum. So again, we type in equals, and now we type in max. And that's all we need for the maximum is max. I'm going to go ahead and put a parentheses. That's really important. I need to start with a parentheses, and then I click my data and go all the way up, back up. Notice it puts in a very specific information. If I double click what I just hit enter on, I can see my code. Notice that it's blue, and so is the box going around my data. It's color coded in case I had more selections. If you mess up, you can always back up and delete. Notice that there is a complete format for this. It says B29 colon B59. Well, that basically means in column B, go to the 29th cell and go all the way to column B, the 57th cell. And those are a list of numbers. Max, find the max within that list of numbers. So this is a reference telling us which column, like going x-axis, and the numbers are a y-axis, rows. I go ahead and hit enter to get back. So the maximum value was 15.951. We're going to do the same thing for minimum. I bet you can guess how we'd find the minimum. Yep, equals min. And we're going to do the same range. Now if you happen to remember the code, you can type it directly, or just hit the parentheses and select and drag the range that you want. Hit return, and now we can see our minimum value was 15.09. Well, the range is just, we're going to subtract those two. So here's the nifty thing about Excel. Type in equals. Now whatever I click on will automatically be pasted into that into my formula. I want max minus min. So I click there and I get automatically B100 minus min. And that's B101. Go ahead and hit enter, and it shows me that I have a range of 0.859. Taking a look at that, that tells me that my number goes anywhere from 15.0 or 15.1 to 15.9, and that means that we could probably round to the 10th place. So the average would probably be 15.4. To double check this, let's go ahead and take a look at one more thing. Now the range is the total number. If we want to see how much does it go up and down, well, we can just take the range and divide by 2. It's a very crude way, but it gives us an idea. So really we're off by 0.4, give or take. So 15.4 plus or minus 0.4 up and down. That'll pretty much give us the same range of information that we have data for. Now sometimes your range might be further off, and your range divided by 2 is going to be a problem. So again, to recap, what I typed was I clicked equals, then I hit this top button here, range, then I hit /2, and that gives me half the range, which means that my middle number is approximately 0.4 away from the max and 0.4 away from the low. So basically, range divided by 2 tells us how far away is the median from everything. The last thing we're going to look at is average deviation. So again, we just did a precision estimate to see where we round. We take the range and divide by 2. Now let's take a look at average deviation. It's a better precision estimate. It gives us a better understanding of where most of our data is, or are, excuse me. So average deviation is pretty much abbreviated of those two words. Equals AVE DEV, and parentheses. Again, we select the same section we did before and enter. We get an average deviation of 0.23. Well, that's a lot better than our range divided by 2. Well, it's half as much, roughly. So that's saying we take our average, 15.39555, etc., and that means it's give or take 0.232. So it could be as high as 15.6, it could be as low as 15.2. That's where most of our data is, while we do have some extremities in the max and min. So the last thing is the uncertainty is a statement. Uncertainty is just a statement of our precision. How sure are we? We are certain within this much. We are not certain about this number by this much, and so on. So the easiest thing to do is look for the average deviation and round it to 1 decimal. Okay, so I'm looking at this. If this was 0.00232, then I would have rounded it to 0.002. The first digit I see there is in the tenths place. I'm going to round it to 0.2. I'm just going to go ahead and replace it. Excuse me. I'm not going to replace it. I'm going to go ahead and put it down here for now. Now I want to round my average to the same decimal place as my uncertainty. Well, since the decimal place is the tenths, then I can round my average to the tenths place. I look at that number and I can easily round that to 15.4. Last thing we want to do is add a special symbol, the plus or minus. On your keyboard, you hit Option, Shift, and then the equal sign near the delete key, and you get the plus or minus symbol. Put a space between to make it look nice, and whatever units this was, you can leave it as it is because it's still seconds. Okay? So that means, for example, in this column, 15.4 plus or minus 0.2 seconds. It could be as low as 15.2, it could be as high as 15.6. We're saying that if anyone else did this, they would probably get values within this range more often than not, although we still have a max and min. I bet you could figure out a way to display the max, the min, and the uncertainty in a diagram. Well, that's all well and good. The last thing is, what can we do about our other columns? Man, that was a lot to do. How do we do this? Well, here's the thing about Excel. Once you do it once and you have it correct, you can copy all the formulas over. I'm just going to click and drag and select all of the ones except for the uncertainty statement. And now you'll notice that there's this little box in the bottom right hand corner. When my cursor changes from a white cursor to a black cursor, that means I'm ready to copy formulas. I click and drag as far as I need to the right, and all of my formulas will copy. Let's go ahead and take a look at this next column to write the uncertainty statement for it. Well, I can see that the range is quite big. It's 14.5, and that means that the median is about 7.25 away from the min and above the below the max. Well, that's quite a lot, but it does tell us that we're probably going to round to the ones place. To double check that, we do the average deviation, which gives us 3.94. Well, that's interesting. That tells us definitely the same thing as the range, that we're going to round to the ones place, but it gives us a better number to use. Most of the data we chose is going to fall within 4 units of 8. So our uncertainty statement, for example, will be 8, because that's what 8 is rounded to, 8.0379 rounded to the ones place, plus or minus our average deviation to ones place, 4. Okay. I'll leave it like that. That tells us that our measurements could be as low as 4 and as high as 12 centimeters for this length. More than likely we were measuring random objects that could fit in our bag or something like that. And that would make sense. That was it. Go ahead and give it a shot and complete your worksheet. Thank you. Have a good day.